developing kind of emerging creative talents throughout their journey. So we created this event called Bright Lights, and I work with a lady called Anna, who has a blog called Nooneartist, and we work together to bring in some really interesting people who are doing really exciting things to come and talk to us about their journey, kind of based on a theme. So this is our Bright Lights night, and the theme tonight is creativity. So I'm going to introduce you to our panel, and then they're kind of going to introduce themselves. So first up, right at the end, we've got Natxo. Hello, Natxo. Hi. Then we've got Joe. Hello. And then we've got birthday girl extraordinaire. She's turning 22 this very day. It's Aindrea. That was weird. Let's try again. I used to work on a cruise ship. Okay, so what I'm going to start off is I'm going to pass the microphone over to Natxo, because basically I just want you guys to give us like a 2-minute rundown of who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll kind of go into a bit more depth with questions later on. Oh, also, our hashtag for the evening is BLITS. So if you feel like doing some tweets based on the night, then please do hashtag BLITS. That's for you, Anna. There we are. Right, okay, let me first pass you over to Natxo.
Hi to everyone, I'm from Spain, I'm Natxo, and my work is here, as you can see, and my work is basically it's about landscape and mountains, and I used to go to landscape and like hike and climbing as well. So I used to take pictures most of the time in black and white. I used to put it as well. I used to do mixed media as well, photography and painting in a big canvas, but that one's so small, I know. And that's it. It's about landscape and the relationship between the nature and the humans, and how small we are in front of the mountains, and that's it more or less about my work.
Sorry. I am Joe Waldron. I'm a freelance illustrator. I'm a freelance illustrator represented by Jenny London. I work for clients around the world. Recently worked for the NFL Players Association, BMW, Wired Magazine, IPA, a few other people. I mainly work in editorial illustration, although I work in advertising as well. I try and create like happy illustrations and fun illustrations, and my work is kind of born from my work's up here, so you can kind of see it. But my work's kind of born, my work's kind of born from like a difficult period in my life, and from that difficult period, I really wanted there to be positivity from it. So that's kind of like where I am now, and how I look to go forward. So that's it about me.
Hi, I'm Aindrea. I'm an art critic, a TV presenter, a curator. I do stuff here, quite newly, an art advisor here. What else do I do? Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot. Yeah, so I write for BBC or 9 mainly. I've written for the FT, Guardian, just for like normal like art magazines like Freeze and stuff. I've curated exhibitions. I presented short films for museums like the Royal Academy, Hepburn Wakefield, Derry Art Centre, and done doing some stuff for TV, so BBC 2 this year. There's been lots of stuff going on. Yeah, I went to the Cultural Institute, so I've got art history background, and I do stuff here now, so that's cool. I'm involved with some exhibitions later this year. Yeah, and it's my birthday, so it's cool.
Cool, thank you very much. So I suppose the thing that always interests me when you're kind of on a panel with artists is, so are you guys full-time artists? Is this what you're doing full-time, and is it your own personal outputs all the time, or do you do projects for kind of big companies? How are you kind of funding your life as an artist, I suppose?
Should I start it?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose my I don't know, my practice as an artist is more written. So my projects are freelance. I work for myself, but that means that I can collaborate with other artists. And I work with artists which I'm going to be performing later on today, because it's my birthday and they have like lots of performance art going on. But yeah, I think just like engaging with other people and being creative in that way, and yeah, I guess that's kind of how I do.
I'm full-time, so that's all I kind of do. If I'm either working on a project for like advertising or editorial, or I'm creating my own work, I'm always kind of trying to be creative, as creative as possible. I'm very, very self-critical, so if I see any type of negative in my work, I try and work as hard as possible to kind of fulfill that negative and push on. And then once I've kind of got to that point, I go, well, I look back on my work and go, well, what can I do now? And I'll carry on working, and then I'll have a project come in, and then it's kind of an ebb and flow of kind of being freelance, I guess. Because you never know whether you're going to be busy for the month, or if you're going to be quiet for the month. Thankfully, I'm usually quite busy for the month, but yeah, I always try and be as creative as possible. Occasionally, I'll work for agencies, or an agency in the US, and that's more that's like set work. So I'll get paid like a day wage, but they'll book me for X amount of time. That's usually not really where my enjoyment kind of lies, because I don't have as much creative freedom as I do when I work with clients. But yeah, so yeah, I do it all the time.
Well, okay, I used to have my own projects and always looking for some targets. But yes, still if I have some customers, you have to make something for them. But most of the time I like to, if the customer is interested in your artworks, it's better if you do something for them. But yes, as well I have studied to be teacher of art, so that's quite good. So I used to paint, taking photographies and teach art, so that's what I like. So that's good.
Okay, so I suppose maybe I just won't use the microphone and we'll pass it down. Cruise ships. So we kind of brought in the creativity question. And so what's interesting is, so are there times when you feel like, even though your entire artist for me just says, I'm creative all the time, there are times where you feel like you don't feel like you're being as creative as you would like. Does that then, how does that kind of affect the rest of your work around you, if you feel like you'll kind of get too ingrained in the, I'm doing this to kind of pay my bills, even though you're still doing art, it doesn't feel like it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think maybe because I'm an art critic, there's been so many great art critics in the past, and lots have been, there's lots that have been said, lots of theories that have kind of been sort of accepted as truth, so you're always trying to sort of think of something new. The way that I do it is that most of my writing is sort of all any work is sort of looking at art history and putting it in a trajectory of pop culture, so relating all the sort of general themes of art, and just kind of making it obvious that all the themes, whether it's contemporary or whether it's from medieval art, it's all riffing off the same sort of human experience. I think that's kind of quite a new way of looking at things. So I think maybe that's my way of trying to sort of
riffing off human experience.
Yeah, trying to make it new and exciting, because it's quite hard to then, I think, maybe engage sort of modern life with things that are perceived as old. So I guess that's kind of what I do, sort of mixing old and new. That's kind of breaking from tradition.
Taking something that you've seen and then kind of making it creative by feeling like you're kind of modernising it,
looking at it a different way, and sort of making people engage with it somehow.
Joe?
I'd say, I think it can be really difficult trying to be creative all the time. Obviously, you have times where, I don't know, sometimes I feel like my head's like a block, so it's difficult to get the ideas through. But usually you kind of break through that and you kind of relax. Relying on it as an income, it can become difficult when you're thinking, how, especially in the beginning, it becomes difficult when you think, how am I going to make money for next month, or how am I going to make money for the month after? But once you kind of start to establish yourself, it becomes a lot easier. Once you start looking from week to week to month, and then you start thinking, I'm going to be okay for next year. And then when you get to that point, you can kind of take liberties where you can be a little bit more free with the work that you create, and that can really, really help your development, personally and and through your work. For me personally, I think in general being creative can be a tough thing to do, but especially when the work that you're doing is so personal. When you're working for yourself and you're producing things and you're putting it out for people to see and people to kind of judge, it's like you're exhibiting yourself all the time. Especially if you have like a personal connection with your work, it can really be. I don't know, like I kind of shy away and I kind of say, oh no, I can't show this, I can't show that. But yeah, it can be tough for me. Like even when my work up there, I'm just like, got to show my eyes from it, just because you kind of think you see everything from a critical eye. I think when you're looking at your own work, and while people will say stuff which is positive and stuff, you will be like, oh well, if that little detail's off, that little detail's off, and that can kind of have an effect on your life as a whole. I mean, for me personally, when I'm working, I've got this strange thing where during my creative process, it's kind of a weird thing where it's like when I'm working on a project, it's like this cogs in a clock in my head. So when I'm working on this project, the cogs will be going round, and if something's off in the project, that cog's like not working, and then the whole project isn't working. So I've got to kind of rectify that, and it can be quite stressful. But then once you're working and the cogs are working, then it's like the best thing in the world. So I guess that's okay.
No, that's perfect. And Natxo, do you have like a similar feeling? Do you kind of have a creative, like do you kind of get lost in your kind of creative brain?
Yes, I mean,
These are like really personal kind of.
It's really personal. That's a good point. I mean, you have something personal, something for yourself. I mean, for a customer, but I mean, I said before that it's better when a customer asks you about your work and know something for them. But be creative all the time. It's quite difficult here. I mean, because you have to think to create. I mean, if they don't feel anything from anywhere, so you can't create anything. That's why. I mean, you have to order and think about that, what you're gonna do, why, and what is focusing for. That's it.
Great. Aindrea. So I used to have a dance teacher, and I'm an awful dancer for her. But when she used to kind of get stuck with her choreography, she would go to the toilet, and she would like be gone from the class for like 10 minutes, and she would kind of have to choreograph. And she would have to come back from the bathroom, and that was where she kind of got her creative. Do you have a space where you write better, or where you feel like you're more productive? Is there a secret to it?
I think when I'm around other people, like whether it's just sort of going to a cafe or cliche, being here, I'm always here. I kind of feed off other people, and like I'm not really one of those people that can just kind of write on my bed or write in pajamas and do that type of thing. Like I need to sort of see things and have people talk to me as I'm doing it, because it kind of spurs me on and makes me excited. Like a lot of my sort of like interest comes from what I see. People trigger certain things as my life goes on. So I guess that's kind of my living space. I think. Or like being online as well. I'm always online, so people tweeting at me, Instagramming, stuff like that.
I'm very similar. I draw a lot of inspiration from the people around me, whether it's friends. I used to work quite a lot from home before, at the very beginning, and struggled a lot because you get trapped in your own thoughts. And like I said before, like you can become quite downward just on your own, kind of thinking, well, what am I going to do here? And you don't have anything to really bounce and think off. And then luckily I joined a studio with my friends who I went to university with, and moving in with them, it was nice because you kind of bounce ideas off of each other. If you're working on a project and it's kind of not really hitting the marks that you want to hit, you can just talk to them about the project, or you can just talk to them about something else, and your mind can kind of be taken away from it. That really helps, I think. I always try. I think that like nowadays, like with Instagram, with Twitter, with like Pinterest, it's very easy to be able to see, be able to draw inspiration from those things as well. Because I mean, before you'd have to look at certain blogs or certain websites, and you'd find find inspirational pictures. I mean, I'm really inspired by 1930s art, 1940s art, and like Art Deco and stuff. And being able to see that instantaneously is quite refreshing to me. Thankfully, I also have got a massive collection of books as well that I work from, like old typography and stuff. That even when I'm kind of stuck on an idea, I'll look and it kind of unlocks something. Similar with there's a website that I go on sometimes called the National Geographic Found website, and also I think it's called Film. It's like a million Fs. It's just like different stills from films. It's really nice to see a different perspectives or different different captures, and you kind of can appreciate the composition of a certain picture or illustration, and it kind of, to me, it helps me kind of say, oh well, maybe I should change this slightly or move that to the left, and then it kind of unlodges more ideas.
Cool. I think that builds us into a really nice new question. Do you have a particular influencer of your work, or are there certain sources naturally that you go to when maybe you need to kind of some help with creative juices or want some inspiration or kind of trying to think of a new way to kind of look at things?
Yeah, I mean, I used to follow always the artists or some photographers, some people that used to do artworks. So I used to follow them and always visit websites that you can be influenced by them, but never copy, of course. But you have to be influenced by them. But some people, I have some artists like Al Richter or Ansel Kiefer, for example. One Spanish guy, Villa as well. It's really nice. That I like the work that he do. And as well, you have to be always getting more and more information to create to keep in touch with all of them, of course. Yeah.
And Aindrea, as you're young to be an art critic and be doing a lot of the things that you're doing. Do you have certain role models, or do you have peers that you kind of follow, or is it often older role models, and who would they be?
I think I was really lucky to I think in my second year of uni, I made friends with all the big art critics of all the major newspapers, so Sunday Times, Telegraph, Guardian, and they kind of took me on as their sort of protege. So I still kind of look to them for advice. They kind of tell me how to go about it, but I still see myself as quite separate to what they're doing, because they very much it's part of a generation of old middle-class white art critics, which I very much am not in almost every single box. But it's exciting to look at what they were doing and see what new things I get to have the I'm in a position to say that they aren't, and they're very encouraging of that, which is great. So I think I look towards the past and see what they were engaging with, but then I also look at I know there's a new way of females on Instagram who are doing exciting things, and everyone can have a voice because everyone has or has the internet or has a smartphone. So I mean, there's so many influences there. You just follow new people every day. Actually, just scrolling. Oh, she's really cool. Lots of feminist role models, lots of girls changing how it is, how people perceive women and girlhood, and that kind of made me interested in that. And yeah, I guess it's both of them really then, the past and the new gen coming up and building.
So I think it's really interesting having an art critic on a panel with two artists who probably have been subjected to the words of some art critics, maybe who they don't agree with the words, maybe they do. How do you feel how does that even impact on your creativity when you feel am I doing this to please other people? I know that if I do that a certain way, will they like me more? Does that ever come into your process?
Go
We're going to start with Echo and then we'll go into Echo? I don't know where that came from.
You mean, what do you mean?
So have you had an art critic comment on your work before? And how was that? Or have there been people who've been oh, I don't like that? And how has that affected how you feel? Because it's such a personal
I mean, some critics of my work What do you mean? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, always is good. It could be good or could be bad, but always is gonna be good for you. You know, because when I'm working, I like that always I show the people, my family, my friends. I need to give. I mean, to give them or tell me your opinion about that. Okay, you have to know that. If you don't know that, you're lost. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, because I mean, of course you're creating by yourself, but for all the people, you know. And I mean, I always like to have another perspective from all the people, and they, I mean, know what are they thinking about your work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you use it in a real positive way, as opposed to something which
I mean, it could be
makes you
about
feel like
pretty,
I
but
can't do that.
yeah, but anyway, it's positive for you because you know that. I mean, what are they thinking about you, about your work? That's always positive. I mean, a bad critic could be good for you, I think.
Yeah, for me, I haven't really had many like negative criticisms, but the negative criticisms that you do have, I find that you could have 1,000 people say positive things to you, but one negative thing to you, and the negative thing to you will always stick with you, and you'll think, oh, how can I please this person? And that thought process can be quite difficult. I think when you're creating your own work, you need to make sure that firstly you're happy with the work that you're producing. If you're not happy with the work that you're producing, then you're really not enjoying what you're doing that much. I try and enjoy as much as I can, and of course, like I have my own like demons where I kind of say, well, this is rubbish, that's rubbish, and try and battle with it. But it could be, it can be really tough, like taking negatives. But I think overall, negative criticism can only really lead to positive ones if you work hard on the areas that people kind of don't get. Of course, like there will be people who see your work and they don't gel with it, and they never will. And there's no way that you can ever really please them. But it's being able to take your own self-worth and self-fulfillment, and it's important to kind of be sure and positive about what you're doing and what you're creating, and making sure that what you're creating is kind of original to you. If you start to worry about what people are thinking, maybe you can look at other people's work and say, oh, well, this person's doing well, maybe I should change my work and make it like this. But really, you're not kind of fulfilling your own kind of destiny, and you're really only mimicking someone else. And I think you should really, really be positive and keep going with what you're doing, no matter what you're doing.
So one of the questions on here is, tell us a lesson you believe is really important for every artist to be creative. And I think self-empowerment is kind of your lesson, something that you would say to someone starting out on their journey. Listen to yourself, listen to other people, take note of it, but definitely pay attention to yourself and your kind of needs with your creative process. Aindrea, do you have any, like a...
So it's the other way around, like advice for an artist.
Okay, yeah.
I think like I've got lots of artist friends, and they would be kind of not complaining but sort of worried about like sort of doing something new, and I think maybe sort of not like get bogged down about trying to be like radical or change things. Like it's everything that you do, like it's different anyway, even if it's riffing off something else, or it's influenced by something else, or it's similar to something else. Everything that you produce is going to be different because it's coming from a different like sort of experience and perspective. So maybe sort of not trying to like striving to be unique, because it's almost impossible. That sounds bleak, but it isn't. Like it's just sort of being accepting and sort of, you know, like everything that you put out there is still interesting. It's just a lot of stuff being covered, but everything kind of rests off the same themes anyway. And so I still find things exciting if they're just about the same thing. Like Sex and Death is like a massive theme, and that's still carrying on.
Exciting things for you this coming up this year.
My son?
Yeah.
This year I've got, well, I'm like working mainly on my TV projects. I've got 2 programs that I'm working on that I'll be presenting, which I can't say much about, but that will be this year, kind of towards the end of it. And this year I launched my new advisory and consultancy company which focus only on female artists, and working with a bunch of really exciting galleries and collections and collectors on that, and doing more stuff here, I guess. So quite a lot actually. That's kind of exciting. And it's my first year when I've not been studying because I graduated last year, so I'll just be focusing on that.
Yeah, I guess for me it's kind of just like continuing my journey, I guess. I've got some interesting projects coming up. I've got like this book thing that's happening, a big project that's in the embers at the moment. I'm kind of unsure whether it's going to happen or not, but fingers crossed it does, because it's just like a dream job really. But I guess kind of just continuing my journey, continuing to kind of make work I'm feeling happy with, and to try and be just as positive as possible really. It's kind of like my goal for the next year. That's
Okay, for me, so I have 2 exhibitions coming. The next one is going to be 25th of February in Shoreditch, and another one that I don't know.
Whereabouts in Shoreditch?
It's in Espacio Gallery. Do you know? I don't know if you know the place, but anyway, you are all invited there. And the second one, I don't know when it's going to be, but the place is going to be behind, next to Regis Park in a gallery as well. So continue doing stuff and improving myself all the time. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Amazing.
You're welcome.
Any questions regarding creativity or projects coming up or anything these guys touched upon? Yes, Olivia.
Do you find that your moods affect your creativity, and if so, which moods are most productive, and how do you counteract those unproductive moods?
Nice question.
should I start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely. My moods definitely affect the work that I'm creating. I try and, I guess, to give you like a bit of a background, I suffered quite a lot from depression a few years ago, and when I was really depressed, I was dealing with a lot of really negative thoughts, and from there I stopped working for ages. This was just after finishing university, and I stopped drawing for probably about 3 or 4 months. That's the longest I've ever gone without drawing since I was about 4. And my style was completely different at that time, prior to this. And I went through this really, really tough time, and suddenly during this period, I was having these images come in my head, and I was just like, I really want to draw these. But because I was so down, because I was so low, I just wasn't creating anything. And I was like, oh, I'll just bank this. And I ended up starting drawing, and all my drawings were really, really small, because I'd only spend probably about 10 or 15 minutes on these drawings, because they were so intricate and so like grand, and I couldn't take that on at the time. So I started off doing these little drawings, and slowly, like 10 minutes became 30 minutes, 30 minutes became an hour, and I started to work myself back up, and then this turned into like a really positive thing, and that turned into the work that I'm creating now, where from the images probably about 2.5 centimeters big, like the illustrations, to what they are now, which is massive. So I really so from that negative thing, I really wanted to have like a positive influence on people. I really wanted people to see my work and just kind of be happy. I think there's so much negativity in the world, and like so much criticism, and just like life in general can be really, really shit. But I think that it's really important to kind of stay positive and like look at the bright things and look at the happy things that you've got in your life. So like no matter how I kind of feel, and I guess like if I'm feeling more negative, I'm feeling more positive against the work that I'm creating is, because I really want to try and just reflect those negative feelings away from myself and make everyone else feel positive. But yeah, that's kind of my process.
Okay, for me as well, when I'm moody or maybe a bit depressed, something like that, I mean, it's get for me power to create more and more. Because maybe when you feel good, yeah, it's like, okay, you feel good, but no, it's when you are bad. I think when you think harder and you get power to continue your project, I think, yeah, inspire myself more.
I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of surround myself with such like inspiring people that are always doing like really exciting things, and that kind of spurs me on, because I don't know, like I've got like such great support network. So people like in whatever fields they're doing, whether it's like arts or like drama or whatever, like being surrounded by such like positive and exciting people like kind of makes me more productive. But equally, I think a lot of people think that because I've got so many achievements that I just get everything. I don't. Sometimes I have disappointments, and I think every time I like sort of go down a step, I'm sort of strive to like go further, and it always ends up that like if I get turned down from something, the next thing I do is even better. So it's kind of like gets a fire in your belly. I think it's being motivated by disappointment, but also by inspiring people is, yeah, that's my sort of drive.
Do we have any other questions from the floor? Okay, so what's going to happen now? A special treat. Joe has put together a bit of a creativity workshop for us. Post the workshop, we're then going to have a live performance from one of the artists Aindrea is working with in the basement around 9, and then we've got DJs, so we've got quite a real fun Bright Lights evening for you guys. So Joe, do you want to introduce us to kind of what's going on? And Anna, you're a little bit more on this as well. So do you want to tell us?
Yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I've only got a small slot, so if you want to join me, that's fine, or if you want to do something else, that's totally up to you. Like, I was basically going to talk a little bit through my my creative process and how, when I receive a job, the very beginnings of how I kind of come to create my work. I was going to start off and show you kind of just the very beginning of ideas, and if I'm not working, or if I am working, how I'm kind of creating these projects. So if you're interested, then come along. If you haven't, don't worry, it's such a short amount of time. You're working through it. Anything down? I'm going to watch over you, so you've got to do it. No, it's fine. US symbols. So what do you think of the United States? So, yeah. Go with that. And the next one is, let me grab my book.
Communication.
So the next one is protection. Protection or security. Sorry. No, it's fine. Like for that, if you've got that, if you could just this is my agent.
So American eagle.
Yeah.
Protecting its nest in a tree that's going to get hacked with an axe.
I think you've done it quite literally.
Quite literally.
Quite literally done it.
That's not the idea.
No, it's good. It's good. I like you basically saying it's shit. It's got potential.
I'm going to take your criticism and turn it into a positive.
That's good. You change the eggs to some civilized technology. So like you could have them, the eggs could be made out of like microchips or something like that.
So what I thought I would do is the eggs represent protection, but I would compare them to technology, so I'd make the eggs into like microchips, and then the eagle would be protecting the microchips, so then you'd have this eggs with an eagle, and that would be American protection. Yeah, that makes sense, right everyone? I just came up with that.
I didn't want it to be coming up. I was like,
Just sunglasses and matrix code in. That's good.
I'm trying to draw a security guard standing in front of a laptop, but it's not really working. It just looks like somebody lying on it.
just chill it out. Right, it's cool.
You know, I did, but you can't see.
I can't stop.
obviously do something to what I did. It's a bit of a take away. So it's like they're losing their identity. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Premise for a Tom Cruise movie.
It's so funny, like, because like, I'm a writer from journalism, so it's so funny because sometimes I'm taking very visual things. I work in like fashion mostly, so I'm looking at very visual things and I'm turning them into words. So the way and this is like the opposite way around. It's really funny.
Is this your final one?
It's just a data nerd, and he's alright, and he's like, will you date me? And he's in America, he's got an eagle show, and it's a bit like a penguin.
Yeah.
He's also got an eagle here that looks a bit like Mallard. I like a Mallard. Her mate Mallard.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'm really good. It's so well. And there's hacking, and he's got an axe as well. He does have an axe. A cowboy hat. It might be not very long, but it gets
I think the cowboy hat and the food is really good. No, I would say it's really good. The illustration here is
That's exactly how I envisioned it.
but I think you
I think it's Ralph Steadman-esque.
Donald Trump having like a
Not directly like.
I'm not doing my best.
really accurate.
It's a bit twenty like Ralph Steadman. We actually discussed it before you shut me down. We actually did. Do you know what? You should all give each other your ideas and you can have fruits line. She said nothing's original, so. Nothing is original.
This is true, there's nothing new under the sun. That's really like it. We don't like
Wow,
sunset.
because the Bible is 100%. Went whole life for.
Well, that's just
like postcards.
1600.
Looks controversial.
Genius.
No, it's fine. Carry on going. Sorry, I'm
You read the book Feel Like an Artist?
it's right.
It's quite, I don't think it's actually
I drew there.
I can't play it. I can't play it. Yeah.